station down on the farm. Learned about loving in a country girl's arms.
G'day, I'm James Blundell, and welcome to the next episode of my fortnightly podcast, Down on the Farm. It is with real pleasure that I introduce my next guest. I've been privileged to have him as a close friend for 30 years. We have toured together, misbehaved together, and come up with a bunch of good and bad ideas. I have introduced him on stage several times as a bona fide musical genius. And a lot of people use a lot of superlatives, but in this case, it's real. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He is a genuine Tamworth native. His father actually invented country music radio in Australia. Those of you who've seen him play know I'm not overstating his abilities. He's a close friend and an amazing musician, and it's my great pleasure to welcome to Down on the Farm, Lawrie Minson. Hello, my friend.
Hey, hi, James. That was an exceptionally good intro, mate. Thank you very much.
And you don't even have to live up to it. All the hard work's been done. Mate, it's been my privilege to share so many years with you and listen to so many amazing stories. And prior to now going to air, I was just trying to think of the ones that will make people's jaws drop the most. And I thought the best place to start was how you actually became a multi-instrumentalist. And rather than me precurse how amazing that period of time was when you're traveling, how about you just go from the start with what those Williams tours were like?
Well, yeah, okay, James. Yeah, my first real tour was in 1979 on the Buddy Williams show. And I was, at the time, I was sitting in a workshop repairing car radios and things, earning $150 a week and pretty bored with it. And I heard that, Buddy Williams was putting his show together. Because a lot of the touring shows used to knock off around Christmas time, regroup, and in January they would put their show together and they go out for the year. And so I heard that Buddy was looking for musicians, so I trotted out there and told a few lies and got the gig. And at that stage I was already playing mucking around with pedal steel a little bit, certainly playing dobro. I wasn't playing harmonica actually at that stage. Had been playing guitar for years, had been playing banjo a little bit by then. But really it was my dad, John Minson. He just sort of come home and he'd try this, and he'd have a dobro, or he'd come home and he'd have a banjo. Like, he just kind of fed my curiosity. And at the same time, he'd say, here, have a listen to this. And he'd play me something new. That, being on the radio station, there was stuff coming in all the time. And he was kind of just whetting my appetite for different kinds of music and encouraging me. And I'd sort of have a bit of, I always say with when you play an instrument, it should be like the sound of your wife's voice, and it should be pleasant. So,
that could have gone anywhere. And the other part I love is that in any instrument to perfect it is practice. And you had, particularly on that first tour, you were towing a caravan at about 45 miles an hour, steering your knees, and to stop yourself going insane, would just pick up whatever was to hand and learn it.
Yeah. 45 was probably top speed. A lot of the time it was, because there was dirt roads. There was not a lot of traffic, but it was just snail's pace. So you literally felt like you could get out and walk. So I figured out how to hold the steering wheel with my knee and practice banjo. So you're right. Out, especially with Buddy, you'd be traveling for hours and hours every day. So I've got a huge amount of practice time in playing banjo. And that's how you do it, and with Slim sitting up the back of the bus playing harmonica all day. Nowadays people wouldn't let you get away with it. They just tell you to shut up, but they were very patient with me back then. I suppose I'm really grateful, actually, because it gave me those hours and hours and hours of practice. Nowadays it's sort of, I don't really, it's kind of like you just put the work in. And it's more just a muscle memory and just something that comes naturally now. But yeah, very grateful.
When I think about the breadth of arenas that you've played in from those shows, which were drive to the town, set up, play, sleep, and then go and drive another 2 days, to full stadiums with Jimmy Barnes.
Sure.
Do you sometimes marvel on the bigger stages that, you've gone from the Tanami, they're my Jack Russells, from the Tanami Desert to middle of Sydney?
The thing with, you're right, James. The thing with music, and you'd appreciate this, is that a phone call can change your life, and music can take you anywhere in the world. It'll open doors. It's just such a fascinating and unpredictable profession. For me, it's just been an exercise in faith, that you put the time in, you practice, and you prepare for opportunities, and hopefully you'll get a call, or you bump into somebody, or something happens where it sets you on this sort of a certain trajectory, and then all that preparation kind of kicks in, and so you can take advantage of that opportunity. I mean, when Jimmy rang me, I was touring with you the first time, and it was just I'd done a gig with Don Walker, and he had become aware of who I was and how I played, and Jimmy was putting a band together to record an album called Flesh and Wood, and had been talking to Don, and Don said, I know this harmonica player, and he plays a bit of slide and what have you. He lives in Tamworth, and it's sort of out of the blue. You get this call from somebody. Actually was on a cheap little answering machine back in the days when they used to have those tiny little tapes, and it was all sort of crackling, and I'm kind of playing this message back and thinking, this guy says he's Jimmy Barnes, and and it's like with this phone number, and it's like, okay, I rang the number, and I was like, is Jimmy there? It was just surreal. And whoever was on there, yes, I'll just go and get him. And I'm thinking, what the hell, and he said to me, what are you doing next week? And I was like, I was on tour with you. And I said, actually, I've got a week break between tours with James Blundell. And that's when we did that record. So it's unpredictable, but you have to have faith, and you've got to be ready for an opportunity, even though if it may not even come.
And every young artist I work with, I say exactly that. I said three things: is make each performance, play it like it's your last.
Sure.
You never know who's in the crowd, and the minute you stop playing it, stop doing it.
Yeah.
But what you just said before is so true. A phone call can take you a phone call can change your life, and music can take you anywhere. I mean, you and I have both been privileged to travel the world with music.
Yeah.
I remember, and this is where this particular interview is so hard, because I'm privy to so much of your life, but going to India for you was such a big thing. I mean, the slide and fretless instruments, and I just remember you coming back from that trip with a really noticeable change in life philosophy, but a particularly distinct change in approach to music and the scales. So, this is the masterclass part of the interview, I suppose. But for people who look to explore, that was pretty much a life-changing experience for you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, James. I was thinking about this morning. That was in 1994. And living in Tamworth, I mean, you can kind of relate to this, because if you've grown up in the bush, you're technologically deprived. You just have to make do with whatever resources you can get your hands on. And for me, a CD came out, because I've always been a huge Ry Cooder fan, and a CD came out called A Meeting by the River, and it was with this VM Barton. I had no idea who this person was. And I went I'd heard about it, so I went and bought the CD. And then this idea of going to India came up, so I thought, well, might try and track this guy down. And I went, like I say, there's no internet or anything, so I went to the record store and I said to the guy, oh, where did you get that CD from, A Meeting by the River? And he said, I bought it from a distributor in Brisbane, and he gave me their phone number. So I rang them up, and I said to these people in Brisbane, well, where did you get that CD from? And they said, oh, we bought it from a record label in Santa Barbara in California, and we'll give you their phone number. So then I rang this crowd in America, And I said, look, I'm going to India. I'd really like to meet V.M. Bart, and he played on this record with Ry Cooder. And they said, yeah, no worries, here's his home phone number. So I got to India and went to Jaipur and made the call, and actually VM's son Salil sort of turned up to welcome me, and but what happened actually, it's sort of like if you've never eaten curry. I mean, you being a food man, you'll appreciate this. If you've never eaten a curry, you never know what the taste of it was like. Once you've eaten a curry, you'll never forget it. And it's a bit the same with the music. Once you've been influenced, it's like getting into a musical bath. There's the music kind of just soaks into you, and you're never the same. It leaves such a enormous impression and has such a huge influence, and you take this thing back with you, and it's just for me. So again, I keep using the word grateful because I've been so privileged to have been put into these sort of situations where people have gifted me influence and generosity and allowed me to take on board things that I otherwise would never have been able to experience, and that kind of bubbles away, and then it comes out like that track we did, Postcards from Saigon. That's an Indian instrument that I used on that track, and directly came from, I bought the instrument from V.M. Bart's family, and so that's been a huge part of my life, and to this day still in contact with V.M. Bart and his family and others that I've met over there.
Oh, brilliant. It takes me back to when I first got involved in the music industry as a 22-year-old, fresh from the bush, had no idea that any of this was going to take place. And I do feel a little sorry for the younger people in the industry today, because it was so colourful circa 85, 86, 87.
Oh, sure.
And I can use a blanket identification because a lot of people came and went from the band, but having won the Star Maker Quest in 87, having no idea what came next, I remember the first time I spent any real time with you was with the Hired Hands, and it was an incredible band. And the Tamworth Workers Club was still pretty much the main auditorium in town, beautiful old timber venue.
Yeah.
And I'd finished school, smoked a bit of weed as a kid, and then but I remember going backstage to one of the Hired Hands gigs and just going, this is the best thing ever in the world, because everybody was having a couple of beers and there's a joint going around, and it's also sanitized now that I feel that they sort of miss out on that part of the party. And I think the thing that took the longest to come to terms with by way of personal discipline is, as we said before, when you stop loving it, stop doing it. Because you never stop loving it, you never stop enjoying the party. And speaking to Richard Clapton, who I know you've worked with, we were having the same conversation, that it's a very fine line between being consumed by the joie de vivre and maintaining a professional perspective. Has that been something that you've definitely not struggled with, but that you've had a better perspective on as you mature?
That's a pretty interesting question, James. I open a few cans of worms there. It's we're drawn to music. Like for me, I think as a young person, I was bullied at school. I found music was a way to get some kind of self-esteem going, some way to feel a little bit bigger. Like physically, I wasn't a big kid, and Tamworth in the 60s was a really rough place to grow up, and music kind of saved my life in a way. It got me going. And then the Hired Hands crowd, so I'd been playing for a little while, and towards the end of the 70s, and I was in my late teens by that stage, and there was this wave of musicians arriving from the West. And so Kirk Steele was one of the first to turn up. Randall Wilson was a drummer. Ted Tilbrook, Kirk's brother Gary, Russell Adams, just one after the other, all just started arriving. And it was largely due to Kirk, because they came through in 78 with a travelling show, Hank Koopman and the Drugstore Cowboys. And James Gillard actually was in that lineup, because he's from the West as well.
Didn't know until right now.
Yeah, so, this band, they hit town, and the band was Ken Ramsey was the drummer, Gillard James playing bass, and Kirk playing piano. And that kind of just blew the place away. I'd never seen anything like it. And they were the best musicians I'd ever seen. And it was just, for me, wow, that's so good. And I think Kirk must have just been talking to these others, and they all decided, Tamworth's the place to be. And so by the early 80s, the local scene here was really thriving, flourishing. And I started jamming with these guys. So we started the first lineup of the Hired Hands. And this is when, sort of getting back to your question, was sort of like lots of parties, music, and just having a great old time of it. But I also found at some point I had more ambition than the rest of these guys. I wanted to take it further, and none of them, they were worried it was going to affect, they might not be able to get the dole. They didn't really want it. It was like all sorts of.
It's great. I love it.
They thought it was going to sort of interfere with their lifestyle and this sort of stuff. So eventually, that's when I went off and I worked for Slim. So I did that for a couple of years and made some money. And then I got a bit kind of, I guess, bored. It was sort of like, as a young person, I just wanted to kind of play a bit louder and rock out a bit more. So got together with some of the Hired Hands crowd. We formed a new lineup and had another crack, but it was just so out of it, and it was that kind of thing where you at some point you've got to sort of ask yourself the question, am I here for the party or am I here for the music? And it takes a lot of people down, and I think I gave it a pretty good nudge because I was just enjoying myself, and the lifestyle, the music, it all kind of, if you're inclined to be that type where, I'll have another drink, I'll have another joint, if you're inclined to be like that, then it can get confusing after a while. It's sort of like the tail wagging the dog, like are you there because the music allows you to have this indulgent lifestyle, or are you really there to play the music and the rest of it is sort of just something that comes with it? And I think as time has gone by, I've come to realise, yes, I am there to play music. That's what I do. It's what I love.
And that was Lawrie Minson, part 1, Down on the Farm. I'd like to thank our major sponsors, Aussie Legends Hemp, Stylish Outback Clothing, and the Granite Belt Brewery. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube Punctured Media channel. Press the big red button. And I'll see you next time for part 2 of Lawrie Minson, Down on the Farm.
And I got my education down on the farm.